Thanks so much, everybody, for joining us today for this special Third House report. Today, we're joined by our Third House member and an expert in the world of digital couponing and media. With us, we have Dave Glaza. And Dave is the CEO of Digits and also founder and CEO of Digits, and was also the founding director of Target's Cartwheel team, spent 15 years at Target, and is currently an advisor and head of CPG partnerships with Groceries. So Dave, thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, so let's before we kind of dive into this crazy world, we have so many questions for you, and also just a note for anybody that's joining us in the actual webinar. If you want to go ahead and post questions throughout the chat in the chat box on the right hand side, and we can try to throw those in at Dave while we're going in with the conversation. But Dave, why don't you start by giving us a little bit of your background and kind of how you came into this world of digital media?
Yeah. Thanks for that. I'm excited to be here, guys. I mean, as you said, I had 15 years at Target, and I'd say, 10 of those was more of a traditional merchant. So I started, like many of us at Target did, as an analyst and move up through buyer. And so kind of had that baseline of core merchant knowledge at Target. But then I got really lucky. My last 4 years, I was brought over to run the business side of the Cartwheel team. So Cartwheel at the time was sort of an idea, and there were a few people that were working on it, and they realized they needed a merchant to kind of come run some of the offers and the vendors. And so that was me. So I went over there, helped build the business side of it, launched it out. And then that really taught me sort of, the digital media side for Target. So, how do you engage with offers digitally? How do you acquire users? How do you kind of monetize that side of it? And really expose me to the digital media side for grocery. And that there's not many of us out there, I think, that have the merchant background and the digital media background. And that specific kind of blend, I think, has sort of helped Digits kind of find a niche as sort of like physical and digital sales have been merging.
And Dave, maybe for those unfamiliar too, like maybe some of those that aren't listening may be familiar with Cartwheel, like explain exactly like how that worked. And you mentioned exposure to digital media. Specifically, what type of exposure did you get through that platform?
Yeah. So Cartwheel for Target was one of the real first digital coupon apps. So, you have a Target login, and you can add a bunch of different, offers to your profile. May it be 5% off cheese or 40% off a movie or a video game. And then you would engage on your phone digitally through Cartwheel, add offers to your list. You could share them with friends. And then when you got to register, you would scan your barcode and instantly save. And in the beginning, it was only good on physical in-store purchases. So it really sort of started for shoppers a way to kind of engage with your phone, but yet transact physically and still in store. So kind of blended that line. Since now they've rebranded it called Circle. So they rebranded it about a year ago for the folks that are using it now, and really sort of, I'd say, internalized it. It's kind of grown up now, and it's sort of part of a lot of what Target does. Circle is a bigger, broader loyalty program than it used to be.
Yeah, and then like within that makes a lot of sense. Like within that, like what were you learning how to do? Because I think digital media is like this almost, and maybe we'll kind of go further on this too, but it's kind of this like amorphous kind of broad catch-all. Like what were like some of the specifics you were learning how to do to give people an idea of like how the nuts and bolts of all this work?
Yeah. I think the biggest shift, and this is what kind of store merchants, but also store CPGs is going from thinking of a linear promo plan and a linear sort of engagement plan for shoppers to then this really fragmented business where you can run, multiple coupon strategies. You can talk to shoppers in different stores with different priorities and different messages. And really engaging with shoppers on a more one-to-one, like personal level, which I'd say now kind of sounds pretty normal when you're talking e-commerce, but 7 years ago, when you're trying to use digital tools to influence people in store on a more one-to-one level, was pretty groundbreaking at the time. So I guess I don't know if that answers your question a bit, but showcasing somebody content, whether that's a percent off, whether that's a new at Target, anything like that via their phone or via the web, to then get them to come in store.
And Dave, talk to us a little bit about what you're doing with Digits right now. Like, what does that picture look like? What are the things that the merchants are looking at today? How are they kind of setting those plans, and how are you with Digits helping them kind of decide what that playbook should be?
Yeah, good question. Yeah, so Digits, we have sort of two arms of what we do. One is we assist brands back into Target. So we have a full service digital circle, digital shelf, and Roundel sort of support for brands that are into Target.
So will you dive into that just a little bit, just so I understand? So like, what kind of services are you offering? Like, is this like D2C brands that are getting in there? Like, how does this is like, you got to put the puzzle together for us, Dave.
It's really
second graders, Dave.
Yes,
talk to us that way. Yeah,
please.
It's for any brands. So I'd say for us, we work with 200 brands today into Target. And
wow.
so we have a couple clients that are top 10 CPGs, like very big name brands. And then we have others that are on the smaller side. But Target essentially makes these tools available. Like pretty much any brand can go to Target, work with Roundel, do sponsored search advertising, run circle offers, and it's all just web-based tools that brands need to be able to use to, enter these promotions or these media platforms. But I think a lot of brands haven't quite kind of graduated to figuring out how to do that, like on a day-to-day basis. And so it's sort of fill that gap in between for like local specific Target expertise.
Okay.
Does that answer?
Yeah, Dave, does display advertising or anything like that come into play here too? Or is it mainly just like the types of activities you talked about?
Display does. So I'd say at Target, Roundel does a really good job with that. And so they offer it very like full service. If you're a brand and you want to do Roundel digital display, they'll manage you pretty full service. So I'd say the need for an external agency like us is a little less because they supply and support the program so well.
Okay.
But it's the other side of our business we do is we help groceries build it themselves. So essentially what we do with Grocer Key, and there's more display there. And
what does that look like? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we partner with Grocer Key. Jeremy, who you guys have had on, they provide software for mid and small grocery stores, and we manage all the digital media on-site placements for the grocery sites. So whether that's homepage placements, search boost, search display, email campaigns, we'll manage those for the grocer and actually sell them out to the brands and kind of help them monetize their site and help give brands ways and tools to kind of drive their business.
So things have changed quite a bit in the last 3 months, Dave, especially people's shopping habits. I imagine things have changed quite a bit for you guys and the clients that you're working with. What has that been like?
Yeah. Digital grocery is it's different now than it used to be. There's a lot more people being stuck in their homes trying either curbside pickup for the first time or delivery shipped at home for the first time. And I'd say, so for us, a lot of brands probably took the first month and were a little scared of running content, right? Because there's so much pantry loading, so much empty shelves. There wasn't a ton of need to really drive business.
Sure.
They were more so trying to figure out the supply chain. But once that kind of got figured out, I'd say later into April, kind of early May, a lot of brands now have kind of reached out to us and are trying to figure out how to use digital tools to kind of drive their business.
Dave, are people couponing right now? I'm curious. Like I've heard there's just such an inelastic demand for so many of the items, and then people are kind of controlling their assortments too that they're putting in the store and just trying to feed the stores with the best, most important items. Like we've heard stories that circular advertisements are down, all kinds of things like that. In-store promotions are down. Are you seeing less digital activity on the whole, more digital activity? Like how has that played out?
Yeah. We've seen less up until probably about 2 weeks ago, and then it's back. So we're kind of back to normal there.
As we start to reopen and things are okay.
Yep. But a lot of retailers did, to your point, pull back on promotions. There was so much business happening with stock up that they've had to pull back on promos. But digital's come back faster. So a lot of retailers we track are back up on digital.
And do you think we're on the front end of a more pronounced shift into digital promo spend then? Do you think that's probably what's also been happening in these last 2 weeks, say against traditional modes of spend, or do you think it's just everything's kind of rising at the tide at this point?
I think digital is rising faster than in-store.
Okay.
I mean, it's kind of giving people a taste of it, right? What you can do via digital, it's getting people more used to it. Sort of like digital grocery itself, right? It's sort of forcing people to try digital grocery. It's forcing brands to try digital coupons. And some of them will stick around if they like what they're doing.
So Dave, you and I had a conversation because a couple weeks ago on the Fast Five, we were talking about the new partnership between Shipt and Quotient. And one thing that was really great, and we always love to get audience feedback, but it was really great for you to help me understand, because in my mind, it seemed like, okay, digital coupons, this is amazing. The more brands that are putting more coupons right in my app as I'm ordering from Shipt or Instacart or whatever, the more that you provide the accessibility of those kinds of delivery services to more people. And so tell us a little bit about as you see it, kind of the intricacies between some of those relationships. And, you know, if I'm a retailer or if I'm a brand that's considering working with a third party like this, what are some things that you should be thinking about when you kind of look at that whole landscape?
Yeah. And yeah, I was definitely interested. I'll give you my sort of thoughts on it. So
do it.
I mean, it was fun to watch from the sidelines, by the way.
If you
Oh, go ahead, Dave.
Sorry, you're breaking up, but yeah. I was going to say for like digital coupons, right? There's two ways to do it. One is retailer direct, right? And so how are you setting up, a promotion just at an individual retailer? The other is working with a third party, like Quotient's a third party, Inmar's a third party. And think of those like the difference between like a big national umbrella program and then bottoms up retail, almost mass media versus digital. And so, with Shipt, I think what I had told you was, it's great for the customers, I guess, because if you're trying to save $1 off a Tide or $1 off Cheerios, like those types of deals that you're used to, then it brings it in, right? And you can save on that. Those deals usually pull into a Target app or a Dollar General app, or a lot of other retailers pull that same feed in. So think of that sort of as just like a baseline. Like a lot of retailers pull all in that same content for Quotient. My negative side of it, like the reason I probably was messaging was, for me, I was a little disappointed that Shipt isn't sort of developing that proprietary on their own. So from a Shipt point of view, having the ability to create retailer promotions, your own promotions, is sort of a core competency of like a national digital retailer that, as just an industry guy, was sort of wondering why they wouldn't try to go out and do that on their own versus bringing in a third party to do it.
And what does that look like? I mean, were you guys doing that for early Cartwheel stuff that you were working on? Like, what is involved in setting that up in-house?
Yeah, good question. So, I mean, the actual ability, you have to be able to, take a discount off a product, right? But then you're sourcing in the deals, right? So you need to staff up with a sales team. You need to have the technology for it. You need to be able to, in Shipt's case, probably have different deals by different retailer. So it gets a little nuanced. Then you need to clear it out, right? Based on clearing, if you save $1 from somebody, how do you then bill back, into the brand? And there's a lot of money sort of shaving hands. So it's a little complicated that way, but it's not that different than, an e-com, ship to home type retail.
Sure. And you own all the data of who's
right. And that's kind of a big piece, is owning your own data.
Sure.
On the flip side, Instacart's got, as a competitor to Shipt, has very robust proprietary search and coupon technology, right? So this sort of signals to me that Shipt is just taking a different approach versus what Instacart's doing.
Dave, help me understand that, because that part of that, it's interesting that you bring that up. Like, based on the conversation we were having 5-10 minutes ago, isn't Target already essentially doing that with Roundel? Why take this different approach then for this specific use case with Shipt?
Yeah, I think Shipt, they try to operate as their own company, right? And so everything that we've seen and heard and they put out there, right, is they want to still be a national player, right? They're not just Target's delivery service. They're a service for 50 retailers, 100 retailers, whatever the number is these days.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a pretty important tenet for them, is to try to do that, and not just sort of be, Target's delivery service.
It's interesting though. It seems like, to your point, there could be some type of synergies, or at least technological synergies there between the efforts, like, versus going that approach, even if you are trying to be separate. It's funny, when I saw you guys' kind of tete-a-tete or discussion going online there, I actually asked you, I was curious because it got me thinking, like, how much of the business is actually outside of Target? Like, how many people use Ship for business outside of Target? I don't think we really know that or understand that. So I asked their media relationship, but I wasn't able to get an answer back. So I'm curious. Yeah, they actually did not respond. They declined to comment at all. They didn't even decline. They actually just didn't. So we'll see where that goes, because you're bringing out, you two are, I mean, that's a really interesting conversation in terms of, strategically, is that a smart move?
Yeah.
So Dave, what in that same Shift release, the Quotient CEO said that, he believes that physical couponing in general is pretty much set to go away, he believes, within like the next 18 months. If that's the case, what do you think this means, being an expert in this area? What do you think that means that retailers and brands, and even the third parties that are serving those brands, what do they need to be thinking about, or what does the future kind of look like?
Yeah. So I agree, like, in concept that they're going away, but I think back in our, like, even when we were building out Cartwheel, 6 years ago, we might have said something like that too, right? And so I absolutely believe in the trend that's happening, but 18 months seems pretty aggressive.
Sure.
But the general trend makes a ton of sense. I mean, retailers essentially, right, are building out tools to connect digitally with their shoppers, right? And so once you can use more like digital tactics to input people's like physical shopping, then you don't necessarily need a paper circular anymore, right? Like, you can essentially give somebody one-to-one pricing, one-to-one product media. People are getting different push notifications. It's essentially like sending a different circular to everybody's house, right? If you want to think of it that way. And so the concept makes a ton of sense. Just the change management is difficult. I know, like, we were talking about this, it sort of reminded me, like, when JCPenney pulled away all their promotions, right? And they were trying to change their business model overnight, and they lost all their customer base, right? So the concept makes a lot of sense. I just think actually pulling it off for the entire industry would be pretty difficult to kind of like get rid of the physical circulars.
Well, and we were talking about, just, you sent me a McKinsey study that, shows that we're moving more towards this. Over half of Americans are now moving to digital shopping. Do you think that, like, how much do you think, I guess, COVID is impacting the move for retailers toward more digital couponing, like, or affecting that? If we're saying this 18-month time horizon is a thing, how much do you think that's impacting that, or how much effect do you think that would have on how quickly we move to more digital grocery and therefore more digital couponing?
Yeah, I think COVID, there's lots of studies and articles out there have really, put accelerant on it, right? And so advanced e-com for grocery about 3 years, maybe to 5 years, kind of overnight. And, a couple of factors there as far as promotions. A lot of our clients on the retail side have stopped doing a bunch of in-store discounts. So whether it be temporary price cuts, price reductions, even weekly ads and sales, because to hire the staff and the labor to put up the tags at the shelf, and to have that many people literally walking around a store and hanging tags, makes social distancing and stuff more difficult. So a lot of those retailers have purposely leaned in to the digital side because you can do that so much easier from a labor. And so I do expect that to sort of accelerate on kind of, those are like, retailer operations side. So. And
do you think that, so I was surprised, again, I keep going back to that particular news story, but I was surprised that it took this long for digital coupons to kind of be there and active on the product page. given how long even Instacart's been around. It kind of reminded me of like the electric car industry. Like why something has to be stopping us from making it easier for people, especially during this pandemic time, to redeem these offers in the app or while they're shopping, instead of having to carry the physical coupons around. Is there like some secret force or benefit that there is for retailers or for the brands to kind of keep these from being more easily accessible for the customer?
Yeah, the biggest challenge is like cross retailers POS integration. So if you wanted to set up like a coupon platform, let's say you wanted to go build one tomorrow, right?
Okay, that sounds like a ton of fun.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
You would have to literally integrate with every retailer's POS, right? And so like when Quotient builds their network, they have to have agreements retailer by retailer and sort of piece together this national network. And then you need to have real-time connectivity, back and forth to an app. And so retailers on their own can do it very well, like a Circle, Dollar General app, whichever, kind of like internal ecosystems can be really cool. But if you were trying to build a national agnostic type program, it can be very difficult. So that has sort of stopped a lot of that kind of national tops down growth. Is just the POS integration. There's some interesting things happening with blockchain. I won't pretend to be too smart about it, but I hear them at conferences that I think maybe might crack the nut and change some of those things at some point as far as retailers reducing fraud, that sort of thing within the coupon space. That might make things a little bit more, might help it catch fire a little bit more from a national side.
Dave, along those lines too, I've always wanted to ask you this. I don't think we've ever talked about this when you've been at Third House or anything, but I think we talked about it on a podcast, Ann, if I'm not mistaken. But why hasn't a retailer like Walmart actually to me seems like the person most inclined to do this? Why hasn't a retailer like Walmart just said, you know what, all the CPG manufacturer coupons in the world, we've got them, and just come in, show your barcode through like Walmart Pay, and we will just automatically put those on your bill or deduct those from, your bill at the register. Why haven't we seen anybody do that? It seems like a total smart play to instill confidence in the consumer. Someone like a Walmart could do it given their low price promise, but yet we force the consumer to basically do all the hard work to redeem these coupons. Why is that? I can't understand it.
So, I mean, that's the nature of the industry, right? Like, that's brand money, right? That's somebody like Tide saying, here's $20 million to incent purchases, right? But they only want to be able to do that if somebody takes an action, right? And like clicks a button to say, yes, I want this. And so it's all about proving out incrementality. So if I give you the deal because you bought it, I can't prove that it was incremental, because you might have just not even knew it was on sale, right? Or on coupon, you just got it.
Because they're all competing against each other for whatever's on that shelf. Yeah.
The argument we've had is, if I wanted to just give you the savings, I would have just changed the shelf price, right? Like I don't want to. It's sort of moving towards more of a one-to-one pricing philosophy, right?
Yeah.
Customers that care about price and value are willing to put into some work, and they get it for a little cheaper. Somebody that doesn't, right, just pays whatever the shelf price is.
Yeah.
So it starts to turn into a little bit of not one-to-one, but shopper-based type retail almost pricing.
Yeah, and there's the different marketing psychologies and handles of all those things are really, unique and different too.
But that's part of why it's not at the same scale of, weekly ad, right? Because you're requiring the customer to do something. You're not just giving them free. If you did give it to them for free, without any action, maybe it would grow faster. But then probably something else would develop on the other end that would say, okay, but if you're willing to put in the work, you can even do this, right? Or you can see.
Interesting. Yeah. Have you seen any discussions at all burgeoning right now around like these types of capabilities that we're talking about while you're in store with like say scan and go shopping? Like, are you seeing that at all? You are.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Lots of tech sort of being developed, right? Like in the industry, you're hearing things. People know that's sort of a next space, right? So upcoming trends, right? Scan a barcode to either, let's say you're checking its price, you're checking those coupons, or maybe you're adding it to your cart. is then how are you engaging with the shopper then right in there, right? You add ground beef, can we show you buns, right? Or whatever that is. And so that's, that technology is sort of, it's available. And I'd say more retailers probably will start to pull it up as those use cases just become more, more prevalent.
Yeah, especially with COVID, seems like a smart, safe way for consumers to shop. And like the point that I hadn't thought about before too, like you said, actually less price sign management for people in the store too. So less things that employees have to touch, which is an important angle I hadn't thought about before.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Especially during COVID and times, you know, less touching equals less cleaning.
Yeah, exactly. And less expense overall. It's not like, you know, depending on what type of retailer you are.
So just a reminder for people that are on the chat, if you want to submit some questions for Dave, go ahead and do so in the chat box on the right, and we'll pull those questions in as we're going through. I have another question for you, Dave, especially as we're talking about kind of stimulating the economy. You mentioned that you're starting to see more action from some of the grocers, from some of the customers, especially in grocery, starting to kind of take advantage of these offers again. Alibaba is doing a unique thing in China. Some research just came out about how they're using, instead of government handing out incentives to people by way of stimulus check, they're actually putting special coupon offers into Alipay so that when people are doing everything from ordering takeout to ordering their groceries, they can apply these credits to kind of say, look, this is where we want you to spend your money. We don't want you to just save it and keep it at home. We want this to kind of be funneled back into the economy. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it sounds pretty awesome. I think it's sort of the idea of like a stimulus check, right? If you will, sort of, but on a product level, right? Yeah, I think it sounds pretty awesome. I don't know, like kind of given the conversation we had a few minutes ago, how you'd pull it off, right?
Sure.
In today's world, the government would have to work with a big national retailer like a Walmart, right? Or maybe they could send out some sort of like prepaid visas or, Apple, some coupons through them. I mean, there might be a way to sort of do it that way.
Sure.
Almost maybe through Apple Pay or other sort of like integrated payments that a lot of retailers have. That's kind of been the roadblock to doing anything. I don't want to say government sponsored, but sort of national.
That's it. Dave, is that one of the roadblocks for SNAP, like with food stamp benefits, is like this whole point of sale piece too, like for those being available for use online? Is that part of this issue too? Never thought
as
about
far
that.
as I know only a little bit to be dangerous there.
Yeah, no, that's fine. If you don't know, I'm just curious.
I know we had done a little bit of work with a company that does digital, SNAP benefits. And I know there's challenges there as far as digitizing those, making them available digital, even looking at your balance and sort of things like that as a user and understanding how much money you have available to yourself can be difficult.
Getting it to work with every retailer throughout the country.
Correct.
By a local level, yeah, that's got to be complicated. Much more complicated than I thought. Yeah.
Dave, in wrapping here, what does a digital couponing and media utopia look like for you? What is that world, and is it 18 months away?
18 months, maybe if we keep having these pandemics, maybe it'll keep driving people to do it, right?
Yeah, right.
So let's hope not in that respect. But I guess like a utopia would be, within the industry is sort of one-to-one shopper coupons, right? If I'm new to a brand, I should get a hot discount, so I try it. But if I'm loyal, how do I keep getting a pretty good discount because I'm loyal to you, right? And so how do we do that? Every item in every store should sort of be eligible for coupons. And then the data finds the right way to give the right discounts to the individual shopper to sort of drive their lifetime value up, right? So it's a lot like, even like Amazon's pricing model or other sort of e-com, but how do you apply that to somebody walking around with a cart, putting cans of soup in their basket, right? Like it's hard. But that's probably sort of the utopia side from a grocery side, is how are you mentioning that on a shopper-based level?
You made me think of two more questions. The first being, what does this look like with voice? And like, how are brands thinking about digital couponing and as customers are searching for groceries via voice now? Are you guys looking at that at all? I'm sure.
A little bit. It hasn't really cracked the nut.
Okay.
Or something that again, comes up at conferences, but I wouldn't tell you, I'd say I've seen it in real life.
Okay.
Some of the ideas go around, I'm sure we all have friends, and I'm a coupon, obviously, far too heavy leaning into coupons, right? There are other people that couldn't care less, right? They don't want to spend the time to open it up and search and look for a coupon. So, but how could they engage? Would they say, hey, Alexa, what is there coupons on Tide? Please apply them to my account. Would they be willing to do that? Maybe. And so sometimes it's less about the actual couponing as it is the experience of getting to them. That if voice opens up some things, or maybe it's text, maybe it's messenger. I think some of that's white space of how do you actually change the experience of finding it.
Right.
That might open up the market for people.
Well, yeah, I wonder, to me, it's like, okay, if I'm used to adding Tide laundry detergent and I say, hey, Alexa, add Tide, is there the opportunity for either a new brand or another brand who's offering it, can all be like, Alexa, prompt them, all is doing a $3 off coupon at Walmart right now. You could do that one instead. Do you want to go with that one?
Yeah.
I don't know.
A lot of sense. The brands would love it to say, oh, if you buy 2, we'll give you 50 cents off. So here's the 2 in your basket, right? But it's same sort of idea. It makes a ton of sense.
So what's that thing called in Honey, but for in-store purchases too? Do all the work for me,
exactly.
Get it
Honey
done. No one's really invented that yet.
Yeah. Yeah. We'll get on that when we're done making our couponing machine
from home,
our platform from home.
Yeah.
Ibotta does it a little bit. If you guys are familiar with Ibotta.
Oh yeah. Okay.
The receipt scan program.
Sure.
I do believe now they will actually give you any discount that's out there based on your receipt scan without you clicking it. So Chris, it's sort of your Utopia.
That's that Nirvana, right? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they collect a lot of data that way, right? I mean, they're essentially seeing your entire, right? And then that gives them other things, right? And then they'll kind of reward you as a shopper for giving them that based on any sort of coupons out there.
Yeah.
Dave, you mentioned, if I'm a new brand getting into Target, what's your advice for some of these D2C brands or smaller brands that are just starting out trying to get into a Target or Walmart who just need to incentivize people to try the product, to get them to try their detergent versus the Tide? What is the approach that you'd recommend for those brands trying to just kind of get some share, especially as people are more leaning towards now digital shopping?
Right. Yeah. The biggest advice we give, especially startup or smaller brands, is they have an inherent advantage to be better at digital than the big guys do, which seems kind of counterintuitive. But if you only have 4, 5, 6 SKUs, how are you always online with a coupon? Your images on the website need to look great. You need to have great reviews, great copy. And a lot of these brands are sort of used to that digital marketing that they'll come into a Target or a Walmart and their digital experience will look very good, right? And then you'll compare them to potentially an established CPG that has millions of dollar budgets, and those big CPGs have just moved slower and haven't focused on digital. So we really push our smaller brands that they can win more than their fair share on digital because they can do it better, they can do it faster, they're more flexible than these big sort of mature, large-scale CPG organizations that haven't really yet matured to this idea of e-commerce tactics.
Wow, that's a scary thought for the CPGs, the big branded CPGs, because right now with COVID, if we're all going digital first more, that just means more death by 1,000 cuts. They get how to do digital first, provided they have the supply chains to keep those stores in stock when people do go shopping in store. Or for curbside pickup or whatever it is. That's really interesting. Wow. I got to ask you this before we let you go and open up the floor to questions. What's your prediction here? I haven't asked anyone this yet. I think we're going to have to start doing this, Ian, but where are we at in a month, 2 months? Are we all back to normal? What you think this is going to, where do you think the grocery industry especially is going to be?
So a lot of our clients are about 15% digital right now. They were maybe 5% before COVID. Okay. And we don't think we're going backwards. I mean, so maybe people start going back a little bit, but it's opened a lot of doors and a lot of people trying, digital and grocery for the first time. And, just in our conversations or intercepts, I mean, it might go back a little bit because people actually like going shopping, but You know, if you were 100% in-store shopper before, maybe now you're going to be 70-30. Like literally today is my kid's last day of school. So I used Ship to order ice cream and root beer because she wanted it for root beer floats this afternoon to kind of celebrate. And so like, I never would have been able to do that before, right? So how do you do things like that just create a new use case that you wouldn't have had before as a shopper? So I guess to answer your point, where are we going to be? I think we're still going to be very heavy into it, but maybe a little bit of a step back from where it was a month ago.
Okay, but still pretty high. And then if we have a snapback, it's interesting because if we have a snapback as a country, you know, maybe it even pushes it more. Like this, we probably haven't found that upper bound necessarily either. So yeah, still a lot to unfold. Wow, that's fascinating. Fascinating stuff to think about, though. God, we're all Nostradamus trying to figure it out. You know?
Right. Well, Dave, thank you so much for taking the time to just share all of your expertise and what you've been working on. If people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, David Glaza, or my work email is dave@digitsagency.com. So pretty simple there. So yeah, digitsagency.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dave.
Thank you guys.